So I don't know if you guys saw this, but this right here probably means that there is going to be a lot of attention given to two streamers in the near future. And those streamers are Destiny and Hasan. Destiny and Hasan have been both clipped in and out of context in the last few days to portray them both as increasingly violent individuals who advocate for violence against those on the political right, those within the Republican Party and those who disagree with their beliefs. And it's with this image that there has not only been calls to ban these individuals from the platform, but there's also been calls to arrest them. I've seen calls towards the FBI from sitting Congress people. I've seen a lot of, social media accounts and, conservative influencers calling for either the arrest or deplatforming of Destiny and investigations and removing of Hasan's content because he's too violent. He's too much to broadcast online. And right now there's just been a flood directed at both of these creators. And now we're hearing Dan Clancy is going to get summoned before the representatives of the United States to testify on political radicalization. But it's not just Dan Clancy, but we'll start with the letter to Dan Clancy, manager and CEO of Twitch. Dear Mr. Clancy, the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform requests your testimony at a hearing on Wednesday, October 8th, 2025 at 10 a.m. in room HVC 2110 of the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center. The hearing will examine radicalization of online forum users, including incidents of open incitement to commit violent, politically motivated attacks. To confirm your appearance at the hearing, please contact the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform staff at 202-225-5074. Please provide your written testimony at least 2 business days before the hearing. You will have the opportunity to provide a 5-minute opening statement prior to answering questions posed by members. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is the principal oversight committee of the U.S. House of Representatives. So this is going to be happening in the House, not the Senate, and has broad authority to investigate any matter at any time under House Rule X. Thank you in advance for your cooperation with this inquiry. Sincerely, James Coner, Chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. So, and of course, Ranking Member Robert Garcia. This means on October 8th, Dan Clancy has to come before the United States Congress and testify on political radicalization. Now, this is the message that Dan Clancy got. Don't believe they are the only people that have been summoned to speak before Congress. Listen today to this report that was published shortly after I saw this letter making the rounds. House Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman James Comer invited the chief executives of Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit to testify at a full committee hearing on October 8th, 2025. The hearing will examine the radicalization of online forum users, including instances of open incitement to commit politically motivated acts. The politically motivated assassination of Charlie Kirk claimed the life of a husband, father, and American patriot. In the wake of this tragedy and amid other acts of politically motivated violence, Congress has a duty to oversee the online platforms that radicals have used to advance political violence. To prevent future radicalization and violence, the CEOs of Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit must appear before the Oversight Committee and explain what actions they will take to ensure their platforms are not exploited for nefarious purposes. So we're not just getting this from Dan Clancy, CEO over at Twitch. We're also getting it for Gabe Newell we're also getting it for the Chief Executive Officer of Discord, and also Steve Huffman, who's the Chief Executive Officer over at Reddit. The only member here that I would have expected maybe be Blue Sky, but I guess they're just not popular enough. You know who should be here if we're going to have this conversation but isn't here? Why is the CEO of Twitter not here? I'm sorry, but my For You page is nothing but an endless amount of rabbit holes that I could dig myself into based on racist, anti-Semitic, or just completely, I would just say, it's not the correct term, but schizo-brained theories that'll drive you into madness. And it's going to make you hate your neighbors and not really desire any unity with your countrymen. So, and not to mention the endless calls for civil war that have flooded into my For You page, the endless call for like type of vengeance and all that. I've seen quite a lot on Twitter in the last, definitely in the last few days, but also it's been a problem for quite some time. And so when the same day the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, there is a school shooting where somebody, a 16-year-old radicalized with white supremacist violence, goes out there and starts taking out students before taking their own life. That, you know, that white supremacist radicalization, that's important. And it's not just restrained to these platforms. I think it should be, if we're going to do this, I think it should be more expansive. And it should include the CEO of Twitter. I don't know why Elon Musk is not being called before the committee. He is not just the CEO of Twitter who is actively sharing incendiary rhetoric on the daily in the aftermath of this shooting. He's also the richest man in the world. So he's quite an influential figure. Quite an influential figure. Hell, more people know Elon than Dan Clancy or even Gabe Newell. Even though I wish more people knew Gabe Newell than Elon Musk. That'd be a much better world than the one we live in today, wouldn't it? Either way, these are the names that are going to be called before Congress. Discord, Valve, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit. How is this going to go? Well, I have one suspicion of how this is going to go. Now, I think the Discord conversation is going to be a back and forth about terror cells using Discord to communicate and stuff like that. And these types of messages, can we figure out in advance so you can inform? They're going to try to work with Discord as a messaging platform in order to spot radicals, because 764 and organizations like that, not just political terrorist organizations, but nihilistic terrorist organizations, they have used Discord quite frequently. So I expect the conversation around Discord to aim something towards that. As for Steam, I think it's probably going to be something similar to that when it comes to the Steam chatting function, maybe. But the thing that I am a little worried about Steam is if this is going to be another violent video game situation. Because, I mean, when it comes to Charlie Kirk's shooter, he was a big gamer. And he played, if you look at his Steam account, which people dug up, he played Counter-Strike, he played Gary's Mod, and he played over 4,000 hours of Hearts of Iron. So not a big day for Hearts of Iron fans everywhere, okay? The TNO community is truly shaken. And I am a little worried that in this moment where we should be talking about political radicalization, trying to make sure that we keep a certain amount of, I know this is like a buzzword, but it does matter in moments like this, a certain amount of national unity where our political leaders and people look to, they're not fanning the flames that could lead to more violence, which then turns into more reciprocal violence, which cycles and cycles and cycles and gets worse and worse and worse and snowballs, right? So I would want to concentrate on that rather than a conversation of whether Simpsons Hit and Run is what's going to get people killed. Then, of course, we have the Reddit CEO. I have no clue how that's going to go. I wonder if they're going to find a bunch of like crazy Reddit posts and just share that and say, this was posted on the platform, come on. Or maybe they might find some Reddit groups, because there's quite a lot of different Reddit groups, some of which that have been removed and some of which have not. Maybe they'll try to find some crazy Reddit groups, but any type of advocacy for any group based on advocacy for direct political violence is shut down pretty quickly by Reddit. So it would have to be communities that are trying to skid around the rules by either, using coded language, or if not using coded language, mods haven't found it yet, or if somehow they can prove it in this hearing, which would be quite impressive if they could, some show of like moderator bias towards enforcing one type of, removing of political language, political violence, but not another. But that's, we haven't even got anywhere close to that being proven. That's just potentialities of where that conversation could go. The Twitch one is different. Look at the other names here. This is why Dan Clancy, and this is why we're going to get there, I promise. We're going to get to how somehow this pushes Hasan and Destiny into an unlikely alliance, possibly even a short-term truce, okay? Discord is a messaging app to talk to your friends. Steam is a gaming platform. Reddit is a public forum where it's like it's a public forum where you reply to people. Twitch is a broadcasting service. Twitch is the only place where you're going to get like long form broadcasted political commentary served to the masses, right? If YouTube was here, then I think Twitch would maybe get a little bit less attention because that could be extended into the YouTube conversation. But because Twitch is the only platform that actually represents some amount of political broadcasting, Twitch is going to be the platform that then represents political broadcasting and the reforms to make political broadcasting safer as to not incite violence that could be damaging to the country, i.e. assassinations of people like Charlie Kirk or Melissa Hortman or whoever. So I think Dan Clancy is going to get quite a lot of attention here. I really do. I think Dan Clancy might actually end up being a lot more interesting than the Gabe Newell testimony, even though the idea of Gabe Newell before Congress, that I do like the image of that in my head, but I say that as somebody who, does consume quite a lot of Valve-related material. So that's not a critique. That's just something I'd like to gawk at personally. So I think Dan Clancy is going to get the brunt of climp chimping. He's going to get the brunt of having to answer for everything that has ever been said on Twitch, especially if those creators are still there or if they've ever been there. And right now, there are two creators that are getting the biggest amounts of attention, and that is Destiny and Hasan. Now, I do need to bring up, Destiny is an interesting case when it comes to Dan Clancy, because Destiny has been banned off of Twitch for 3 years. So the idea that Dan Clancy would have to answer to anything Destiny has even said in his recent appearance on Piers Morgan or in his recent broadcasts on YouTube, his recent broadcast on Kick or any of these other platforms, it doesn't really make too much sense. But also, Destiny made a tweet pretending he was banned because he was targeted by Elon Musk, because Elon Musk has been bashing him along with, yes, Elon Musk himself has been bashing Destiny, along with tons of Congress people, Jesse Waters on Fox. He got the primetime slot. The slot that Tucker Carlson used to get was given to go bash Destiny. So he's gotten a lot of attention right now, and he's used it to tweet this out. Unreal. Elon Musk and other conservatives just got me banned from Twitch. My entire income is now gone. So much for the party of free speech. And you can see all these people around it reacting to it. Mike Cernovich, Kat Kanata, Cat Turd, Sarah Gonzalez, Russia Today, Breitbart News. Look at these news organizations of high quality and stature, known for their judicial independence and their lack of bias. Grum's, Laura Loomer, who's an advisor to the president, Oren McNair, Clown World, Sir Doge the Coin, the Hoge Twins, Wall Street Map, whatever. He got banned 3 years ago. None of these people could bother to go Google. They just wanted it to be true. They wanted to get I got him. And so it became true. And the reason I bring this up isn't to say, look, all these people are stupid, right? I mean, I could bash Russia Today any day of the week. The reason I bring this up is to say they could just bring Destiny up anyway. The way that these hearings go isn't that Dan Clancy's on a podcast. This isn't going to be where Dan Clancy gets to open up a beer and chill with the guys and it's like a fun chill stream, an IRL stream. No. This is going to be an environment where Dan Clancy speaks when spoken to. The way these hearings go is that the person gets to talk, whoever is the elected representative, as much as they want, then ask you a question. And then they can, after you answer that question, that's it. If they want to cut you off at any point, whatever time they get to question you is their time, and they get to use it however they see. So not only do I think that if he's been banned 3 years ago, if you're, if you just don't care to mention that to the grandma at home who doesn't even know who Destiny is, you could just talk about what Destiny said and not mention that. Or you just don't care. You could say, well, this was said before. This didn't get Destiny banned. He said this back in the day and he didn't get banned. Or, this is the type of culture that proliferates on platforms like your website. He's gotten so much attention, and his clips if Donald Trump wasn't reelected, maybe Charlie could be alive today. Like, stuff like that is so incendiary that I just find it very hard to believe. And this purposefully incendiary. This is what Destiny's doing to get attention to his point about the president's need to de-escalate. He's done so much to bring a light on himself. I think it's inevitable that they bring him up. And who else are they going to bring him up to? Steam? Discord? Reddit? No. I mean, Reddit, his community exists on Reddit. Maybe that they could do that. There's a Destiny Reddit. But Twitch is the only platform that ever broadcasted his content, and they're just on such a Destiny hate boner right now because of the purposeful incendiary rhetoric that he's used, that I think that he's just inevitably going to get mentioned, especially when he's getting the primetime Fox News slot. He's getting mentioned by every right-wing influencer. I mean, I'm just waiting for Trump to mention him. I mean, you've gotten all the way up to Elon Musk, who's going to be funding how many people come to 2026 midterms. I mean, he's like one step away from the president of the United States saying, should I designate DGG and the DylanBurnsLIVE a domestic terrorist organization? So I do think that it's not that unlikely that Destiny gets mentioned. I don't know if it'll be mentioned in a Dan Clancy context, but the only reason I'm suspicious is because that's the only context that I can imagine him getting mentioned in. If they wanted to bring up any of these clips. And I've seen Don Jr., the president's son, saying that Destiny represents the mainstream of the Democratic Party, which I don't remember him winning that many votes in the primary, but that's the message that's being pushed. Even though most, if not all, mainstream Democratic Party figures would be terrified to even be photographed with him, he represents the mainstream of the Democratic Party. So I think that there's a good chance that he's going to get mentioned as an example of this type of radicalization, of this type of rhetoric that's going on online, right? But the other person who is inevitably going to get brought up at some point, there's no question about it, is going to be Destiny. No, sorry. I just said Destiny. It's going to be Hasan. It's going to be Hasan. Hasan's clips have been getting shared around like crazy. Hasan's clips of him talking about, make the streets run red with landlords and XYZ. It's been getting brought up on Twitter. It's been shared by Republican congresspeople as well. It's been shared by mainstream right-wing outlets. It's been talked about by other streamers who are trying to get Hasan banned and removed from the platform. And he's even getting confronted in interviews like this from Australian TV. This is a foreign news broadcaster asking him about his clips about making the street run red with the blood of landlords, and if this is incendiary rhetoric. So it isn't even just the American domestic press that is bringing attention to this when talking to Hasan. Hasan goes on a broadcast, on a news broadcast, to talk about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and this Australian broadcast, not even the American partisan media sphere, we're talking about an Australian broadcast, brings this up.
I want to ask you about your own rhetoric. I noticed that Elon Musk has been posting about you.
Yes.
And I don't know the context of these particular statements, but here's a quote from you about landlords who don't want to rent out their properties. You said, kill them, murder them, let the streets soak in their red capitalist blood. Doesn't that make you part of the problem with violent discourse?
This was in a conversation that I was having with a landlord friend of mine, and it's of course hyperbolic, and it's not meant to be sincere. This is not sincere advocacy. It's not a real policy that I would ever advocate for, and that's precisely the reason why when Republicans were desperately looking for any sort of incisive language that they could present, they went back to a very obvious instance of LARPing.
What would Hasan say? And this is my question, because this isn't just one reporter that's going to be asking him this. This is an entire committee, half of which is going to be at bare minimum. But he's also he was kicked out of the DNC. So it's not that impossible that a Democrat or two is going to throw in some hands in there too. But I think it's largely going to come from every other person on the committee. What are they going to say if somebody brings out one of those clipboards? And it has his tweet about Tom Cotton, where he has the firearm that took the Fallout it looked like something you'd put together in your garage, but this shotgun that took out Shinzo Abe. He posted it in response to Tom Cotton talking about basically like rolling over protesters in the street. It was essentially saying, you do whatever to remove them, like run them over, whatever. It was, Tom Cotton was, advocating for a violent action, and Hasan responded with a vaguely violent reference. Well, I don't want to say vaguely. It was pretty like openly like, what is he going to do, Dan Clancy, if he's confronted with that? Is he going to stand there in front of a bunch of elected Congress people and say, well, we need to look at what Tom Cotton said to understand? He could try to take that position, and I do think what Tom Cotton said is gross. I think Tom Cotton, whether he admits it or not, was emphasizing a violent action, was saying something that could lead to somebody like running over a protester, having their Ford F-150 tire crush their skull, and then somebody's dead when he could have waited for law enforcement to remove them. Or you could have like hit the gas a little bit a few times to push them out. But no one wants to end up like those dudes at the end of the Rodney King riots, getting pulled out of their truck and having their heads smashed in with a brick. Nobody wants that. But we also don't want anybody getting pulled over by these trucks in the road because everybody's decided that they're their own law enforcement. And Tom Cotton has decided that that's what we're okay with. So I understand that conversation could be had. You are not having that conversation with Republican congresspeople. You're not going to be able to splice that with Republican congresspeople when they can literally at any point just shut you down. Maybe the next Democrat that speaks after you will give Dan Clancy more time, but can Dan Clancy do well in this environment? This is not an IRL stream. And if he has to answer for every, either out of or in context or out of context thing Hasan has ever said, or Destiny, or other streamers, it could be a rough night. Look, even if you're Dan Clancy and you go in there and you try to study every possible bad clip in advance that you think these people could dig up, there could always just be the clip that gets thrown at him that he doesn't know the context of, or he could just point to something that no matter the context, he's not going to be able to explain away, like that Tom Cotton tweet. And so, this is going to be dangerous ground for Dan Clancy. Dangerous ground for Dan Clancy. And look, before Congress, it's not as simple as, hey, let me just read you this statement. If you look at the meeting with Kash Patel today in the committee, they were bringing up links and playing videos from his podcast with Benny Johnson. And so, you could see the best hits of Hasan getting played before Congress.
Very obvious instance of LARPing, an insincere statement that is obviously hyperbolic from, I believe, 2018.
My question stands nonetheless. Doesn't that kind of language contribute to the atmosphere of violent, even lethal violence in the United States?
I don't believe that my insincere statements that don't reflect on any of my beliefs whatsoever in 2019 has led to any sort of real world violence whatsoever.
So he talks like this, right? He can answer for his own words. It's easier for, if Hasan was going to Congress, probably, for him to answer for his own words. Dan Clancy has to. Is Dan Clancy going to say this? Oh, Hasan was being insincere when he said that. And then you're going to get a Republican responding, what? My mother's a landlord. Actually, fun fact, so was Hasan's mom, by the way. My mother's my landlord. You can't say that about, how could you say that's insincere? They'll just outrage, no matter the statement. And at the end of the day, like, you play this clip and him saying in a video game being for young people meant as insincere, even young people don't always see that as insincere. I see in a video game as a way a lot of times to say a very edgy joke, but be clear that you don't mean it. It's also a way to say something really violent or gross, but then get out of it. Like if I came out here and I said, oh, we should do XYZ violent thing to this streamer I really don't like in a video game, because people know I don't like that streamer, some people are going to be thinking, well, was that a joke? Or, is the in a video game just so I could get away with? And so clips like this, the clip that was being mentioned, if played before Congress, no matter if Dan Clancy says, well, he said in a video game, it's not, it's going to be a bad night.
It's hurt poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works. Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah,
In the context of this, by the way, it's really funny upon reflection to hear Hasan refer to Dan Saltman as his friend. And in retrospect, it's very strange to think about it that way, considering that this is the same Dan Saltman that has been trying to get Twitch to remove Hasan or do something about Hasan in relation to his commentary to the Israel-Palestine war for years now, and what he has been classifying as anti-Semitism. It's really strange to hear that. But again, like he's speaking to like the Australian press, who's like, well, Dan Saltman, a Destiny Orbiter lawyer, like they're not going to know that. So I guess he just said friend to not be too terminally online. It's just weird upon reflection, knowing the context of the relationship.
It's hurt poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works.
Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers in a video game. Sorry. Holy shit. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods, dude. Oh my God, in a video game, of course. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit, dude. Sorry. I meant in a video game.
Man, Hasan's bookshelf on the right there, is that Why Nations Fail? Got some like libbed up books over there. Anyway, this played before Congress. If Dan Clancy says, excuse me, Chairman Comer, he said in a video game, could you die in a video game? It's not gonna work, dude. It's not gonna work. In a video game was never gonna work. It never worked. It never worked. It just made you feel good. You want to know what in a video game is? In a video game is a streamer comfort object. Okay, it's a little like body pillow you squeeze onto to make you feel better about doing something, saying something that probably get you TOS violated. That's what it is. Okay. Sometimes it's to say something very funny that everyone knows is a joke, but you probably couldn't have said in another context, some edgy joke. Other time, it's meant to get away with a terror threat. It's meant to say something absolutely horrid that the only way you could get away with saying it is by making somebody possibly wonder if you're being serious or not. And in this context, even if it is the former, Congress will not care. These people will not care. They will make Hasan the image of leftist broadcast terror in the United States if they can. They will make his face the image of, Hamas taking over America. Violent rhetoric on the left. Where's this? I mean, despite the fact that you could see all these different sources of tensions rising in the United States, from who the current admin is and him just being an incendiary political figure, to problems with income inequality, to problems with how the FBI is handling anti-terrorism operations and a lack of experience over some top leadership positions in law enforcement agencies, problems when it comes to the radicalization online, and not only when we talk about like a lack of moderation and how moderation on platforms like X have been reeled in tremendously and how people are getting like funneled into these rabbit holes, but also just radicalization in places like Discord groups and stuff like that, and the free access of information overwhelming a lot of young minds, like that 16-year-old shooter in that school an hour after the Charlie Kirk shooting. There's so many different areas and perspectives you can go at it with, but the official stance of the administration, the official stance of the President of the United States is that right-wing extremism is not a problem. Right-wing terror is not a problem. Left-wing extremism is a problem. Left-wing terror is a problem. Those on the extreme right are just angry about murder. People on the extreme left want transgender for everybody, which is how he always puts it in a very strange way. It's like we got the meta gun from TF2, just got HRT in there, just going through neighborhoods, drive-bying conservative families, making them trans. And that's the framing that he has provided for the conversation. Hasan fits so perfectly into that framing. And Destiny. Both of them fit perfectly into that framing. Destiny, because of the way he makes these statements as perfectly, as hyperbolic as he can, as inflammatory as he can, to get attention, to get on platforms like Piers Morgan, where he can then make the case. That's the strategy he's used to get on these shows all the time. That's why it's like cycles of like, what did Destiny say this time? As he's entered himself back into the conversation. That's one of the things he's really good at, is using basically his reputation and his image and willing to get it covered and absolutely scratched up to all hell in order to throw this kind of using himself like a lightning bolt in the middle of the conversation to get in there and talk about, for in this example, how the president of the United States, despite what any online commentator could say, if he doesn't de-escalate, he is the most important person to de-escalate. The person who is literally the head of state, the representative of the American people, which is the first job of the American president, outside of being, head of the armed forces, is also to be the head of the United States, the representative of the United States. In fact, many presidencies around the world, that's really the only job the president has.
Is a curd.
Gerald Fryburn, thank you for the $5. First, they came for Destiny, but I said nothing since I was not a DGGer. Well, they came for Destiny, what was it, like 3 years ago? So I think it's the combination. Thank you for the $5. They came for Destiny 3 years ago, and then he basically had the same viewership anyway. Anyway, so both Destiny and Hasan, I think, are going to be called quite a lot of things in the next few days. And going up to this hearing on October 8th, I would not be surprised if we had Destiny clips and Hasan clips being played before Congress. Hasan, I know for sure. Destiny, a little less so. But he might have entered himself in the conversation with that Piers Morgan appearance. I shit you not. I think that Piers Morgan appearance might have just literally put him front row and center for this conversation, because I've seen Congress people retweeting it. I've seen Elon Musk retweeting it. I've seen everybody right, left, and center, including the president's children, quote tweeting that. Even more than Hasan is getting attention because of, again, he used himself like that lightning rod. So Hasan is the easiest for people to bring up in reference to Dan Clancy because he's not only an unbanned streamer, but he's also what Dan Clancy has personally called one of his favorite streamers on the platform, which I would not be surprised if you hear that quote of every time they play a Hasan clip, whether it's in or out of context. And so I wanted to play one more clip in relation to all of this that I thought was a little interesting. This is from Hasan's stream where he's talking about Destiny. And he's saying that these clips are being used by conservatives to go after him, including the people who have called for his arrest, but that liberals are caving in and capitulating to these critiques on Destiny because they're being cowardly. So in this, he's saying Destiny's right. And when's the last time anybody's seen that extension? It kind of, again, this is creating strange bedfellows, these moments. This is a strange time for politics. Oh, is it 2019 again? Wait, no, it wasn't 20. It'd be 2017, 2018, right? When they were, chatting it up.
Do you think everything he said is covered by free speech? Yes, I do. I do. Not the death threats against you, though. What do you mean? No, ultimately, I think like everything that Destiny is trying to say here is obviously very clearly. Everything that he's saying here is incisive deliberately. But what he's very clearly trying to say is that like Donald Trump needs to fucking lower the temperature. Okay? That's what he's trying to say. That's it. Like, it's ridiculous for liberals to cave and capitulate to demands of lowering the temperature when the main figure in American politics, the goddamn president, is not doing so at all and is using this tragedy as an opportunity to fucking stamp out any sort of political dissent.
That is Hasan defending Destiny. That's not to say that they're friends. That's not to say that they're now butt buddies, okay? You know, they're going out to a picnic. They're having a nice evening together. You know, we've returned back to the old Bernie bro conversations, you know, of 2017, 2018.
Is a curd.
But that's a defense.
Dude, you're hardcore coping here. Hasan's ego and fully self-absorbed non-political nature will not allow for any meaningful anything with him.
I don't know how that is related to anything that I've said. So I don't know what I'm coping about. Thank you for the free money. I don't even know what is with that even critique. I don't even know what that's in response to. I didn't say that Destiny and Hasan are going to start working on politics with each other. Let me be clear, okay? Let me respond to coping allegations, okay? I'm not saying that Destiny and Hasan are going to start a fucking political party together. I'm not saying Destiny and Hasan are going to enter a polycule together. I'm not saying Destiny and Hasan are going to start making video game OSTs together or anything like that. What I'm saying is if either of them have any brain cells to rub around in their skull, they would be taking the full force of all of their verbal strength and aiming it at the people who are actively not only trying to, in some cases, remove their ability to do their job, but also put them in prison. Do you not think that in this environment where we have Nancy Mace out there calling for the deportation of Ilhan Omar based upon the fact that she just said that Charlie Kirk did not have a sparkling legacy, in reference to the actual rhetoric and, the ways you live your life are not necessarily changed by the way that you pass, which essentially was the message that was pushed by Ilhan Omar. Even if she, again, did condemn the violence, and we got that type of rhetoric, there are going to be people who are going to use this when they play that Hasan 9/11 clip in Congress, which is a real possibility, by the way. They're going to say, Dan Clancy in response is going to say, oh, we suspended Hasan for a week when he said that about 9/11. Or they're going to say, well, when Hasan that we took him maybe 2 days or, maybe we didn't ban him off of that instance, but, I'm not really happy about. It's going to be a PR disaster if that's how this goes. And so if either of them are smart, it's gonna, I don't know. You could say that, oh God, do I have to explain it this way? Is this the only way that you can explain it? Chiang Kai-shek and Mao didn't like each other, but the present threat to both of their existences meant that in a moment they held fire. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that these people like each other. I'm not even saying they're going to work together. I'm just saying if they were smart, they would concentrate fire at the people who both are the ones trying to make them lose their job actively, are the ones who have a lot more influence to lose their job than just other streamers because they can target a company's financials and give real legal power, legal pressure from the state, and Twitch can get nervous. And it's not just about what Dan Clancy thinks. It's also about the people who back Dan Clancy. It's about the people who financially back Twitch. It's about Amazon, who was at Donald Trump's inauguration, none other than Jeff Bezos, the same Amazon CEO that owns Twitch. What do you think Twitch Primes come from? So if you're smart, if you've got brain cells to rub together, you aim at the people who hold power. You aim at all your verbal critiques, all your verbal all your verbal, I don't know what you say, showdowns, whatever you want to call it. All of your concentration should be towards the people who both have power and are directly going after you from that position of power. And Hasan and Destiny are the two people getting focused on right now. And so on that one thing, they probably have unity. I hate Hasan, but you're right. I mean, you can hate Hasan, you can hate Destiny. Like, the people who are in charge right now and are in positions of power in this country are much more influential and important than probably any immediate streamer beef, both for their careers and for the country. Dylan, is it dangerous for Hasan and Destiny now? I don't know if I would use the word dangerous. I think if somebody showed, Hasan's maybe like 9-digit zip code and called him like, maybe like a Zionist, I don't know, maybe it could be a little different. But I think that, he has reasons to be worried about national temperature. I think really any big mainstream political commentator should have reasons to be concerned about that. Really any American should, but especially those with a public political profile. And those streamers are Destiny and Hasan. Destiny and Hasan have been both clipped in and out of, a lot of out of context, who pulled the trigger.